Boston, USA, the Pixies!
The Pixies are probably one of the most influential bands of the late 80s and early 90s, and their debut album, 1988's Surfer Rosa, definitely shows that and proves it well. The record was released on March 21st, 1988, and was recorded from November to December of 1987. It was released on the independent label 4AD and was produced by Steve Albini. Steve Albini was also a big reason why this album was very influential, because when Nirvana was recording their 1993 studio album In Utero, they actually requested that Steve Albini do the production because of his work on Surfer Rosa. The album surprisingly only had one single, which was Gigantic, released on August 22nd, 1988. Quite crazy to think about because the band's signature song, Where Is My Mind, which is also on this album, wasn't actually released as a single like Gigantic was. However, that doesn't mean that Gigantic isn't an iconic song. It is one of the band's biggest songs and a huge concert highlight. So first of all, this album is amazing and probably in my top 15 favorite albums of all time. But there is something that you have to know before you get into Surfer Rosa and the Pixies in general, and that is, they're very weird. This album is very different and very strange from a lot of music. The vocals from Black Francis are very interesting and very quirky on songs like Broken Face and River Euphrates. And the lyrical content on stuff like Bone Machine and Break My Body is very weird and at some points disturbing. However, I think that adds to the charm of the Pixies, and it always really has. Through all of their music, they always have that quirky nature that really does add to it. Tony's theme off of Surfer Rosa is also a really good representation of that. The track starts off with Kim Deal saying, "This is a song about a superhero named Tony. It's called Tony's Theme," before going into roaring and ripping guitars that go throughout the whole song. And as if this album couldn't get any quirkier and weird, there's also a lot of studio samples that are taken from the studio sessions while they were recording the album. Probably the best example of this is at the beginning of the track I'm Amazed, where Kim Deal is talking to Black Francis about a story that was going on with a teacher at her high school. These segments in the album are really interesting and actually keep you really engaged instead of diverting you from the music. This album is also an album that you really have to listen to from start to finish. Like, yeah, sure, you can kind of skip from track to track, but a lot of these songs are really short. Some clocking in at under a minute and 45 seconds. And honestly, with their experimental nature, it really wouldn't make sense for them to go on much longer. Tracks like Something Against You and Broken Face are very, very interesting songs and very experimental songs, and their length doesn't really take away from the experience. Something Against You has a weird ska kind of guitar sound with a lot of distortion on Black Francis' vocals when he's screaming Something Against You over and over. And Broken Face kind of has Francis doing this Mickey Mouse impression throughout the chorus. It's very interesting and not really something you would expect, but that's just what makes it have the charm that it has. Bone Machine is a really good opener for this album. The drums kick this thing off really well, and the guitar riff is really, really catchy. It's also one of my favorites on this album, with the lyrics being somewhat strange. The lyrics in the song are also very interesting, with the second verse detailing someone asking a homeless man for a soda before getting molested by him. Of course, the bigger songs in this album, Gigantic and Where Is My Mind, you can't go into this album without knowing at least one of these. Where Is My Mind, with a lot of other people, is how I discovered the Pixies, and this is a really great song. The backing vocalization by Kim Deal in the background is really, really great, and overall the acoustic and electric blending in the verses is really, really cool and definitely works. Kim Deal actually gets a front row seat in terms of vocals on the track Gigantic, and her bass work also is very prominently shown. But other than that, this album is an album in its truest form. You can't really skip through it. It's best listened all the way through. The song Vamos from their 1987 debut EP, Come On Pilgrim, is also featured on this album as track 11. It is slightly longer and is better recorded. I do prefer the version on Surfer Rosa a whole lot more than I do the one on Come On Pilgrim, but that doesn't mean that the one on Come On Pilgrim isn't great. That's a great version as well. Vamos is also a really big standout on this album, with most of the song being this instrumental that has a bunch of really jangly guitars and weird things going on. It's really interesting. Brick is Red, though being my least favorite track on the album, is a really nice and mellow way to end up the album. 3/4 of this track is instrumental, and honestly, I would have been perfectly fine if the song was an instrumental all by itself. It would have ended up the album nicely, but those ending vocals, though, just kind of carry it along, and, it sounds really nice. River Euphrates is a fan favorite on this album, and probably one of my favorites on this album, too. Francis and Kim do a great job harmonizing at the beginning vocals, and the verses are really, really nice and blend right into the big chorus with a huge bombastic crash. Cactus has a really nice palm-muting guitar part that goes throughout the whole song. It's really down-tempo and kind of low, but I do think that works really well. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it is a really good song. Oh My Golly is a really fun song with the chorus saying the title over and over again, having that bouncy feeling. And the ending of the track is really funny too. It's a studio banter between Francis and Kim. It's really funny. And overall, I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about this album. This album is truly a must-listen. If you're a fan of the artists that were inspired by the Pixies, you definitely gotta check this thing out. It's great, and it's not really a long listen, too. Overall, I'm going to give Surfer Rosa by the Pixies a 9.5 out of 10. It's a really great album, one of my favorite albums, and I definitely suggest that you guys check it out. So this is pretty much going to be it for the first album review on the channel. I have a big video coming soon. I figured I'd let you guys in on some of my musical tastes right now before I get that video prepared and ready. It's going to be a good one, so I hope you guys stick around for that one. And yeah, more album reviews are going to be coming soon, so make sure to check out for those. And yeah, peace out.
And this I know, his teeth as white as snow.